welcome, Mrs. Roach. We're glad you're here today. We're going to ask you some questions, and then we'll give you an opportunity at the end to ask us questions. Please share information and examples from your educational background that have prepared you to be an assistant principal in NISD.
So with NISD, I've been here 20 years, so that gives me that education background. But also, though, I have 14 years of project management and program management experience. When I first joined NISD, it was just a kind of like a change in, I guess, in my career. But I'll just kind of get off of that because I'm about to go on a tangent. But basically, what has prepared me is just the strength and the motivation of like the kids. The kids really drive me a lot, which is very interesting because when I was at IBM, I didn't think I was like a kid-friendly kind of person. But when I think back on my career, even at IBM, when I volunteered, it was a lot in the school system. It was facilitating programs with helping kids with like technology, because at that point, I was a project manager in IT, and so I would help kids with technology. And so with all of that, kind of led me to thinking, well, maybe teaching is something I kind of wanted to do, but I put it on the back burner at that point. When I joined NISD, though, it was very clear that this is where I was supposed to be, because a lot of the times, sorry.
No, you're fine. Hey, you're good. That's why we're practicing.
Yes, because I'm getting off
and I talked about, so this is how we'll just give feedback as we go along. You and I talked about you bringing that IBM experience in.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do on a question like this is, I like that you used 20 years, then you said 14 years project manager. Talk about some things you've done in your leadership role here.
Mm-hmm.
Department chair, 2 departments.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just literally
then
started
go
panicking.
in. No, you're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we can do this again.
Okay.
We got plenty of time.
It
is nerve-wracking.
Oh no! All of a sudden I was
no,
hey.
panicking.
Okay.
So let's go through the questions and talk about how you would.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That. Okay.
So maybe.
Like the next one says, describe what you think the role of a team leader is.
Okay.
But that's for team lead. So change that to assistant
principal. Okay.
Principal.
So what do you think the role of an assistant principal is?
So I think the role of an assistant principal is twofold. One, to support the teachers, because I know we have a motto of kids come first, and that is wholeheartedly the truth. But I think as an AP, you have to support the teachers in order for the teachers to support the kids, and that makes it stronger if you kind of come at it from that approach, because the teachers are the people who are interacting the most with the kids and all the time. And so if the teachers don't feel that support or that transparency or the fact that the communication is there, then it's kind of hard for them to put that love on the kids, because they're not getting it themselves. So I think that is one of the most important things. So for example, when in my department, I have a teacher, she is so for the kids. And I think that sometimes she feels like she doesn't get support. So as a department chair, I really kind of focus a lot on her when things are going on. So for example, she had an incident where she was struggling with a SOAR kid, and she was reaching out for help, but she felt like she wasn't getting it. And so we sat down, we kind of talked through her emails she was sending. So I kind of coached her a little bit on maybe you tweak this here, that might get the point across. So I did some questioning with her, would ask her questions well, what is it that you want to kind of get out of this situation, and kind of things like that. So I was really trying to get a full understanding of her, and then how I could help her with helping that student, because she kept saying, I just can't be mean. I just can't be mean. And I was like, you're not being mean. Because you have to look at that one kid, but also all the other 30 kids that's in the classroom. And so so we just kind of talked through that a little bit. And so then she tweaked her email, she sent it off, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit just to kind of get things ironed out. And then I was an advocate for her with our assistant principal that's over our department, explaining things. like that. And then actually I just talked to her the other day, and she was like, it's all solved. I got my support. Thank you so much. So to
awesome.
me, that's the role of an AP. It's yes, kids come first, but if you don't support that teacher, that teacher, because like in her case, she touches like 200 kids a day.
Yeah.
And so if she doesn't feel that support, it's going to be a struggle for her to support those 200 kids.
And also, if they ask a question similar to that, they're going to want to hear that you're there to support the principal.
Okay.
They'll want to hear that.
Okay.
So, you mentioned that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great.
Yeah.
I love. So
That's
you
good
gave
examples. Good
two
examples.
things, and then you gave an example. Remember, that's what we talked about.
Okay.
last
Yes,
time.
I remember. That's why I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
and I think that's why I started panicking in the first question. I was like, wait, what's my example? What's my example? So it's like, hey, just gotta be calm. Gotta be calm.
Yeah, no, this
Okay.
is
Examples are key.
this is why we do this, and
Okay.
we'll do this again.
Okay. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think if we could circle back up Monday or Tuesday
Maybe Monday or
morning.
Tuesday. Yes, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, what do you think your individual strengths and talents are that will contribute to, as an AP, contribute to the school?
So my talents, it's kind of I keep saying twofold, but it's collaboration, relationship building, and processes. It's like I am really big on processes because I feel like processes provides like structure. Everybody knows what's going on because you're following the process. It's clarity. So just with that, along with the processes, are to me like overall. And then you have to have those relationships. And then I've learned with working as department chair and also working at IBM is that if you can include the people in creating those processes, so with that like collaboration part of it, then that makes it even better because they have like buy-in to it. It's not just you are dictating. And I get that sometimes you have to make quick decisions, and I totally understand that. But my thought process is if you can lay things out ahead of time, then when it's time to make those quick decisions, it's kind of already there. If that makes sense. It's like because you've already laid it out, you've already talked it through, and there's buy-in. So there's not a lot of selling you have to do at the end. And then with that, you need to reflect because no process is perfect. So you have to go through and look and see what went well, what didn't go well. So like for oh my God.
No, give an example.
So, like,
Here's
for
an
example.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like for example, because I'm like a process queen. I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Because so for example, when we were starting, actually let me give the IBM example because that's what's coming into my head.
Yeah.
When we were part of this group called Rapid Business Solutions Team, and so what we did was we would go into different companies and do fit analysis and things for their company, kind of determine like where they had gaps and holes, and so then we would submit a bid. So what I did, and me and my team, was we created a process to do that because that did not exist at IBM at all. That was like a brand new unit, and so it was like a group of us, about 5 or 6 of us, was like a little small team, and so we created the process of like how this would work. So we would go to the company. So we laid this all out into our plan. We would go to the company, you would do like an initial analysis of it, and then put a plan together and then submit the plan, and then you have to do the budgeting and things like that. So that's kind of how we started out with the process with that. In education specifically, let me just think of which one I need to pull out.
Yeah, and all the things you've been a part of.
Yeah, so in education specifically, one of the things was the unconscious bias. So sitting down with a group of colleagues, we were talking about different things, looking at some data, and thought, we noticed that there was a trend of maybe
Minorities.
basically. Just minorities, and then just kind of some other teachers too feeling that they were not necessarily being seen because of whatever reason. Because sometimes when we get with unconscious bias, we kind of immediately jump to like minorities and gender. But there is, what we found very interesting was people felt that way about their culture as well. And so then that led us to, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to sit down and really kind of think about this and create something and put something in place. Even though that's not a process per se, but it's the thought process and the methodical part of it where you are laying out like step 1, this is what we're going to do. Step 2, this is what we're going to do. And so that's what we put together and then presented it to our principal to say, hey, we think this is something that we need to have in our school. Is this something that we can do a PD on? So
Yeah, y'all saw a problem within the culture, and instead of y'all went into solution mode, and you can say that I think that's what an AP's role is, doing things like that.
Okay.
So, they will ask you a question about difficult parents.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Have you ever had a, how will you interact with the parents, and there's a upset parent? What does that look like for you?
Okay, so difficult parents. Trying to think of the recent one. Okay, so
And when they ask you that, I mean, to me, Roach, you have not had issues with parents because you're good at communicating. I like that.
Oh, okay.
Say, well, I mean, we've all had those parents, that are upset, but they're just trying to do the right thing for their child. And then go into as a classroom teacher, I haven't had a lot of issues with parents because I try to communicate. So just go into that.
Okay.
If that's,
Gotcha.
that is you
Gotcha.
don't have problems with parents. I can't ever
I
remember.
haven't heard anything.
So.
Okay. So I guess in my brain, when I just heard that question, I was thinking difficult parent was just one that I had to deal with. But I hear what you're saying. So, so really
Think of it as an AP, how would you deal with
Okay.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does that look like for you?
So then, this is good. So then I think as an AP, so then what I would say to that, so let me just back up and get back into character mode here. Okay, so ask me the question again. And then
as an assistant principal, you may encounter a situation where you've got an upset parent, or an upset teacher. What does that look like?
Okay.
How do you work with them?
Okay, so for me, again, I go back to that building relationships because everybody wants to be heard. I mean, that's just point blank. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be seen. So first step is to let them vent. Let them explain to you, what's going on. Don't try to jump in and solve right off the bat. Let them, like I said, let them vent. And then follow up with questions, like leading coaching questions. Like, for instance, so what do you want the outcome to be? Or in things like that. So you lead with that kind of thing. And so then after that, you talk it out, because usually people just want to vent sometimes. And even with parents just want you to know that their kid is special. I mean, that's it. They want you to know that their kid is special. And so when you portray that I think helps kind of calm them down and helps them go, oh, okay, well, it's not attack. And if you stay calm, that helps, I think, them stay calm. Them stay calm. So like for example, and I don't know if this was, I don't call this difficult, but I'll say a teacher that was like up here, that had escalated. So basically how I handled that was she came into my classroom, like all, and I was like, okay. And then I just said, stop, what do you want out of this? And she said, what? I said, what do you want from this situation? And she said, oh. And then she stopped and had to think about it and answer. And then I said, no, what's best for the kid? Because again, I go back to,
That's good.
I go back to, the kids come first, but if that teacher is not settled down, you can forget about it. Because I mean, we're all human, and you can't, if you can't clear your own head, you cannot help anybody else. And so that's kind of my philosophy when I deal with difficult people. Even when I was at IBM, same kind of thing. When I was working at Hertz, like almost as a child, and I'll tell you, I worked in the complaints department at Hertz, why would you put a 19-year-old in the complaints department at Hertz?
That's fun to bring up.
I'm
yeah.
just like, are you kidding me? But anyway, and it was at the airport in LA. Like literally where I was sitting, I could see the planes coming in, and I don't like to fly, but anyway, sorry, side thing. But I think that helped me though learn to go. People just want to vent.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Yeah.
I think as an AP, you have to be able to sit down and calm your own emotions and don't get caught up in it. And then
Calm, cool, and collected.
Exactly, and just kind of relax and let them talk, and then come in.
I like that.
You need to show what you just showed. Make sure,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of your gifts, and that will serve you best in this role. Because it's not one of my strengths. I have a tendency to lose it sometimes. Everybody knows that. I try to have my people that, you know what I mean? But that will be a strength for you.
Okay.
And showing that to them, that was awesome.
Okay.
Do you see a question on here that you
Let's
want?
see. Okay, let's go to provide 2 examples of best instructional practices
Ooh, good.
used by teachers, and why do you think those are particularly important to student learning?
Okay. So 2 examples. The first example is table talk. So, and what table talk is where like the kids have done a warm up, or maybe this might be the lesson from the previous day, and there's a question on the board. It could be a question like, I'm just going to use mine for example because that's what's in my head right now. So what skill or what strength do you want to work on when you give your speech? Give your speech. Okay. So now at the table talk, they're talking as a group what the skill is that they want to work on, what are some things that they can do with the skill, and then how to improve. And so they're kind of doing like a reflection. So to me, that's important because it's helping them learn through others. It's helping them reflect. And then it's also because in our elective classes in like science and social studies, those teachers tend to have like large class sizes, like of 25 to like 32 students. And so that helps the teacher as well not have to try to get to everybody, but still the teaching is going on.
They're facilitating.
Exactly. They're facilitated. And so then so I think it's important because again, the kids are learning through each other, but then they're also reflecting on themselves, and then they do a share out. And so then you're still kind of getting deeper into the learning. So that's one, is table talk. Another one is I'm really big on reflection. I mean, my kids probably hate me because I'm like, let's reflect on it. But another thing I saw was celebrations. Even though you may be thinking that's not like an educational or instructional thing, but it really is, because what it does is that it helps the students get comfortable with each other. And so when we do things like table talk or work with a partner and things like that, they're more comfortable with each other because they're finding like a common ground when they are working. So
and that goes true with your staff members. Like think of it when you're AP. Think of that goes celebrations, celebrate your staff too, you know.
Okay.
And they may ask you, and it's not on, I don't know that it's on here, but what experience do you have in leading professional development?
Okay, so experience with professional development in education is, like I had mentioned before, with the unconscious bias. So that was something that we put together and led at our PD and got warming feedback from. It was really good to the point to where it extended to like a book study afterwards, and people are still constantly talking about the unconscious bias. So, and what my role was in that was putting together the presentation, and delivering the PD. So that's just one example. Another example is when I worked at IBM, that was part of what I did as well, was facilitation. So what I mentioned before, when I was with that group Rapid Business Solutions team, part of my role there was also as a facilitator. And so I had this one session. It was a group of ladies. It was about 10 of them, but they were they were blue collar ladies. And so I have to set that stage because that's very important to the story. So they were blue collar ladies, and at that point, IBM really only dealt with the unit that I was with. We only dealt with like electric and gas companies. So they were like the hardcore boots on the ground ladies. And I'm telling you, I walk in there, and they immediately all looked at me like. And then I was young too at that point. I'm not so young now, but at that point, I think I was like 20. 25, 26, and they were all easily in their 50s. So I walked in there, they already had their mind made up about me, like already. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. Okay, so I walk in, and they're all talking, and I know my height works for me, so I use that a lot. And so I stood up, and so I stood up, and I watched them, and I looked, and they had a necklace around their neck, and I looked, and I said, does that spell BITCH? And they were like, yes. And I said, so you just wear that as your armor around your neck like that? And they said, yes. I said, oh, this is going to be good. And so that's exactly what I said. And so I just got up and started doing my thing. And when they would do something, I go, cut that out. We're not doing that. You're going to. And so we just kind of went through it that way. And at the end, there was like, they handed me a necklace. They was like, you were perfect for us. I said, okay.
Lord, that's awesome.
But I thought, you got to be kidding me. How you already forming an opinion about me before I even got there?
Yeah.
But again, that helped me. And I can put that, with an AP. When you're walking into trying to give somebody PD who doesn't want to be there, you have to really sit down and kind of meet them at their level and then raise them up. So that's kind of the thought process behind it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then they'll ask you, I'm pretty sure they'll ask you, and if they don't, you got to fit it in. Where, because of your experience with social studies department and PLCs, they're gonna ask you something about, don't you think they will?
I think they will.
Okay.
Okay, so
like leading PLC.
So what are your thoughts on the work that is done through the PLC?
Okay. So for PLC, so when I was the department chair of social studies, one of the first things I did was came in, because here's the thing with social studies, because before I was department chair, obviously I was in the department, and I was a Texas history teacher. So when we first came in, one of the biggest problems we had was like alignment, because we couldn't figure out how we could help 8th grade, because 8th grade had the STAR tested subject. So one of the first things I did when I became department chair was send out a little survey and go, hey, actually, no, I didn't do a survey then, because at that point we were getting flooded with so many surveys. I didn't think it was going to work. So in our PLC, I basically led a session on let's talk through how we can better support 8th grade, because at the end of the day, that was kind of, let's face it, it's the STAR test, or at that time it was the whatever it was, tax test, I think, the tax test. So when we all sat down, we came together, we collaborated and determined that it was vocabulary, because in 8th grade, the vocabulary words on that test are ridiculous. Those kids, they don't know the words. And so what we did was we created like a vertical, is that the? Yeah, a vertical like alignment with vocabulary words. So we looked at the vocabulary words that was in 8th grade on the test, and then filtered those down between 7th and 6th grade. And so we started teaching them the vocabulary words. So that's how we supported 8th grade. And so then periodically we would revisit, we would look at different lessons and things to see, okay, how are we doing? Again, because I'm a reflection, just like process queen, I'm a reflect queen. So it's like, okay, so what did we do well here? How can we improve? What's our next steps kind of thing. And so then that helped, at least I believe, well, no, it did. It helped because at that point I was teaching 8th grade, and I know that the numbers went up because they could understand the vocabulary.
So, they'll talk about PLC, so that's a great example, but they may ask it in this way. What do you think the purpose of PLC is?
Oh, okay. So,
but I love that example.
Okay.
Like you see, like you have to know your team, and it's focused on what students need. So love that. That's a perfect example.
Okay.
But what do you think the purpose of PLC is?
Like the purpose for the teachers, or just the purpose in general?
How do you think they'll ask that?
Like what are teachers like? As an administrator, if there's, I mean, to me it's like data, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like if we're trying to struggle, and how would
Okay.
you?
It's
Okay.
collaboration,
Collaboration.
yeah, working to get alignment.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then basically.
So there's so I'm just gonna do an example.
Mhm.
So say I'm just gonna say you're over social studies,
Mm-hmm.
and you see they're really struggling in the data. So how are you gonna turn that around to make these kids or teachers
How will you lead the team in
Mhm.
looking
How-
at the
yeah.
data and that
to
kind of
change
thing?
that and turn that around to where we get to where they?
Well, and you did that. There's
Mhm.
your example.
Yeah.
Just
But-
let me
but
think
I-
of how they'll word that question.
I think what you're saying is, this time I jumped right into the example before I said the purpose of
But
it.
I think it was the way I asked the question. I don't know how they'll ask that question, but they're going to ask something.
Okay.
about
And they're gonna talk
PLCs.
about data stuff too.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
What do you like? What do you think? Let's talk about. You have a notepad.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some things we think they'll ask or topics. How does that? I love. So you are
PLC.
answering. You know what I'm loving seeing? Your personality come through.
Yeah.
You got to
Okay.
show that.
Mhm.
Okay.
You got to show them who you are. I love that you always bring it back to the kids.
Mhm,
That's going
mhm.
really well. And I love that you have the experience of IBM and education.
And
Just-
then the last question.
I do think the more you can highlight some of the things you've done way more than just
I know, but I am
bias.
like drawing
Yeah.
blanks.
So maybe this weekend you kind of think about, okay, make a list of things
Yeah,
you've done.
I started doing that, and then
like instructional leadership team,
I
leading
panicked.
a PLC in both core and non-core.
And put down there campus culture.
Oh
I
my
know
gosh,
they'll talk
yes.
about campus culture. You know, how would you contribute to that?
The
Difficult parents for sure. I know that's. And how do you handle if they threaten you and they skip you, go directly to the superintendent, file a grievance?
Yeah.
How do
they're
you
gonna
handle,
want
how
to
do you handle
hear.
that?
They're gonna want to hear that you can multitask. You know, you have the ability to. They're going to want to hear that instructional leadership and supporting the principal are your two
Mm-hmm.
kids first. I like that, and teachers, but that instructional leadership and balancing. Sorry, I'm giving you a lot there.
No, I'm good. So what was it? Balancing, just like
Balancing your time, like
Oh, okay.
being able to work discipline,
Multitask. Like
Multitasking,
we're
okay.
definitely multitaskers.
supervision,
Um,
culture, enhancing the climate, and
Okay.
that's the thing, Roach. You've got to highlight you are a huge part of the campus culture.
in your discipline, like how do you handle discipline, like with kids too? Like,
That's a good question, good topic.
mm-hmm.
And I think you go back to the things you're already talking about, where you make sure they're heard. You know, you're building relationships with the kids by being
That's huge, yeah.
in areas, being in classrooms,
Be invisible.
supporting them,
and always
highlight that you, like Roach, you do things. You're not a bragger, but you're gonna have to brag a little bit. You go to events, you volunteer for track, you go above and beyond, and they don't know that, so they need to see that.
Okay.
Like, you always go to kids' stuff.
And
when
you
they
need to
ask
put on
you.
there that you've also stepped in for us, as you know, when we're out, you step in and you have that experience.
And I would, even say, well, I realized when I first started looking at doing this, I approached the admin team, and they started giving me opportunities, and through those opportunities, I realized that I'm ready. I understand the role. I know it'll be different once you get in there, but use the language of you're already, like,
I'm already there.
yeah. Yeah, make them see that
You're
you're already
ready.
there, because you are.
Mm-hmm.
I would also highlight something good about you is that when you do see a problem, or maybe your team comes to you, that you like to come and sit down and go, hey, that you're not about, oh, okay, let's complain about it. Just like that one teacher, you're about, hey, can I get a few minutes of your time? I want to,
You make
talk
yourself
about it.
available to your
Yes.
team and your staff. You're there to hear them, because everybody has a voice, right? So you want to make them feel heard.
And you're already doing all that. They just have to see it.
Talk about celebrations too. How do you celebrate your staff? You do.
Yeah. Well, and she does it in the classroom too.
Motivation, that's a motivation piece.
Oh, they might have something like this. Describe your approach in resolving a difficult dispute between staff members.
How do you
have to
handle
do
that?
Mm-hmm.
What are the 3 most important responsibilities in this role? I could see them asking that. Could you?
Mm-hmm. How would you maintain a high level of success and to motivate staff to continue to pursue excellence?
So motivating
That's a
staff.
good question.
Mm-hmm.
That is
That's
a good one.
question. To really have a
And that goes back to relationships, building them up,
Mhm.
celebrating, listening.
That's probably how they'll
Supporting.
ask it. So
Yeah.
you can put that on there.
Yeah, say it again. How can you maintain?
How do we maintain
I
a
could copy
high
this for you.
level
This
of
was
success? Yeah.
this was
This is
team
more
lead.
team
It's
lead,
one I
but
found, but I was
switching.
like, man, there's some good questions.
Okay.
They like that. And if they ask a 2-part question,
Mm-hmm.
don't answer the first, and if you don't remember, could you repeat the second part? And that's okay,
Okay.
too. And it's okay to go in with notes.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
It is okay.
And
Like how would
definitely
have
have
a couple of questions.
Yes, I
Yeah,
had
talk
some
to her about
questions.
what you think questions
Questions.
she should.
Okay. I think let me see what I wrote down for some questions. Let's see if those.
Listening to the sound